In this video, we're doing RC Batteries 101 and the updated version of that. Now, our first video, RC Batteries 101, has been online for quite some time. And finally, someone got in the comments section and pointed out that we got some of the information wrong. Now, did that affect the safety of how things work? No, it didn't. All of the information that we had towards safety and charging and all that was accurate, but it was some of the finer details when it comes to understanding what the numbers and things mean. As soon as we understood that we didn't have that information correct, we took it offline and it's been private ever since. But still, this is an important part of the hobby and you should understand what it is you're dealing with. In this video, we're going to help you understand what all of the numbers on this mean as far as what this one and that one and so on means. We're going to go over the different types of batteries from, Lipo to nickel metal hydride, what we started with NiCad, even all the way back to where we were using alkaline batteries that you had to buy at the store to run for a while. All of that stuff really did go along with the hobby because, yes, even though you have a gas-powered RC or a nitro-powered RC, you still have to have the batteries in there to control the radio. So every RC out there requires on this technology. In this video, we're going to try and help you understand how to be safe about it. We're going to help you understand what the numbers and everything mean, and that it's not as bad as it could be if properly mitigated. Here we go. Check this out. All right, let's start off with the basics on this, and that's battery type. Now, way back in the day, and keep in mind, I'm in my 60s here, so I've been at this a real long time, and one of the first RCs I bought, which I really wish I still had, required alkaline batteries to run it. So it was a constant fight to get to the store, buy batteries, and run it before they came out with the more higher end stuff with the rechargeable things and stuff. And we have one of our old carpet racers, and this one's in really good shape, but this one has NiCads in it. Now the thing about that is NiCads had a memory. And what that means is you had to treat them very gently. You had to charge them all the way up. You had to discharge them all the way down. Every now and then you had to trickle charge them, because if you only charged it 3/4 of the way up, it would remember that and you wouldn't get full charge anymore. On the racetrack, that could be the difference between making the last lap or not making the last lap, and that was a real important thing. So batteries were expensive and they had to be like babied to make sure you had the best packs out there. People were buying matched packs, which means each of the voltages in all the cells were identical, so they charged evenly and they discharged evenly. But then they moved to something newer, and that's this. Now these are nickel metal hydride, and you get these today with like the Megas and the lower end ones, the brush systems. A lot of the times they'll use this. They're starting to use Lipo more and more now, but for the longest time you could use these, and these were a lot better. They held a better charge. But here's the thing. We had all the chargers set up for the NiCad systems, and that was cool, but when we got into nickel metal hydride, we had to buy new chargers because it was a different technology. Okay, that's fine. Then we get into what we have today, and that's Lipo. Okay, so they have a lot of different versions of this. They have the high voltage ones and whatever. We're going to talk about the regular Lipo batteries, and this isn't about brand. Okay, so we have a whole bunch of different brands here, but just to get a disclaimer out front, this is not sponsored by anyone, but at the same time, I personally am a fan of Ovonic batteries. They're not overly expensive, they're nice and dense, they got a good weight to them, and we haven't had very many failures. We might have had one or two over the years fail on that, so I really have a lot of faith in those. They seem to work really well and they've held up good, but they're not the only brand we like. So with the Lipo batteries, again, new chargers. Now the thing about it is, the chargers you can get nowadays, some of them will handle most of that, and what it does is it's the charging rate and all that. Well, some of the newer chargers can handle all that, and then when you get into what we have now, and we don't have any of these here at the studio, but the smart batteries, and the smart batteries have a couple of really cool things. One, they'll send your voltage to the transmitter so you can see how much battery you have left. That's a pretty neat thing. But it also, the newer ones, and this is the research that I've done on them so far, and if you guys know more about this, please put it in the comments to help everyone understand what this is about. Since we don't have any of the smart batteries here, I can't 100% tell you this is exactly right, but with my research, it tells me that the newer ones will, if you charge it up and leave it sit, it will automatically discharge to a storage level. Okay, so we had somebody in the comments ask, they bought the smart batteries and they charged them, they used them, and then they put them on store. So they did that on their, this is what the comment actually said, was they stored the battery and put it away for a couple of months. When they got the batteries back out, they wouldn't charge. Now, one thing that I've learned over the years is when you automate things, and what I mean by that is even a basic charger. So a charger for even a battery like this, and it doesn't matter what the brand is, but the idea is the chargers for these are smart. You put it on the charger, it'll charge it till it's charged, and then it'll pause and it'll tell you that it's full. The thing about that is, even with that type of thing, and like I say, I'm going to say it again, it's not about brand. So a friend of mine had one of those type of batteries for his drill set, and I had the same one, and he snapped it on, let it sit, no big deal, and it caught fire at the charger. Now, it caught fire at the charger, not in the battery. The whole thing caught fire and caught on fire, and he had to throw it out in the driveway to keep it from burning things down. But the ones that you have in your drills and stuff are lithium ion, and they look more like a battery, but they're stacked in there. Okay, that's one type. But the point of that is that when you have an automated system, they can fail. And I don't know if this is what happened or not, but it seems to me like the smart batteries were put on storage. They have the ability to discharge. And the thing about a Lipo battery is once it hits a certain level, it won't charge again. So there, you have to be really careful how you deal with that. And we'll get into that in a little bit here. But right now, we just want to make sure that you understand the difference in the batteries. So this one here, this one is a lithium ion battery. Now, I know I had to read it, but it's really small text. This is a lithium ion battery, and it's kind of a dense little thing, but that's what this one is. So not to be confused with a lithium polymer battery or a Lipo, this one even has the balanced charger on it. The chargers that I have, the bigger ones, will charge this. You just have to tell it what it is. On the other hand, this one is a Lipo, and this one is pretty gnarly. This one is a 2S battery, and we'll get into what that means in a little bit. But see how small this is? Well, different cars require different size batteries, and that's for basically weight and functional area within the vehicle. So you got to make sure you get the right battery to fit the car that you want. Plus, you have to be really careful what battery you put in your vehicle, because if your vehicle, let's say you have a brushed system, brush systems generally go up to 2S on my experience. Now, there might be different ones at this point, but 2S is max. So when you run a brush system and you try and upgrade that and throw 3S into it, and I don't even think you can get parts for that, but if you can, you're going to burn up that motor like that. It's going to go really fast because they're designed for that voltage that you run with 2S, which is basically the equivalent of something like this. So that's how they are able to use the Lipos in each system. Let's take a minute here and get into what the numbers on these things mean. All right, so let's talk about the numbers on the battery and what do they mean. And we're going to start right over here. This one says 5,000 right here, and it says mAh, 5,000 milliamp hours. So that is basically, the best way I can tell you what this is that tells you the size of the fuel tank in your car. So the larger this number, the more capacity it has. In other words, it will run longer, but keep in mind, the larger your battery, the more it weighs, the more resistance it drains out of the car itself. You will get longer run times, but with a large enough battery, you'll also start to add heat. That's usually pretty negligible overall. The difference between a 5,000 and a 6,000, you probably wouldn't even notice the difference. But if you jumped from a 4,000 to a 10,000, you'd feel it. It would run longer, but I would definitely check temperatures with that. So this 5,000, that's the size of the tank. Okay, so let's look at this. And this is a lithium ion battery designed for power tools. And this is a 60 volt battery. This is a really big one, but you'll notice right over here on this side, it says 9AH, not MAH, 9AH. So that means that has a full 9 amp hours in it. Okay, that's pretty impressive. Well, this says 5,000. but it's milliamp hours. To know what the amp hours is on this, you have to divide it by 1,000 to figure out what the amp hours is on this one. So divide that 5,000 by 1,000 leaves you 5 amp hours. So this battery is smaller in capacity than that one because that's 9 amp hours. This one's 5. Okay, now next to that it says 50C. The C rating is really weird in my opinion because there's no real industry standard for it. And what I mean by that is this company, that company, this company, that company, they kind of rate things differently. And if you look at a lot of the Traxxas batteries, it's 25C. Okay, I've seen a lot of them that way. Even for batteries that go in the X-Max, 25C. But they still snap off a lot of current, don't they? Here's the thing. I find that there are minimums for what I'll accept in my RCs. So the 50C is my minimum. I start at 50C unless it's a really small RC. For anything 10th scale and up, I like to hit 50C on that. Now, that doesn't mean this is 50 amps that it'll pull. That does not mean that, and that's where we had our problem in the first video, was I was like, 50C, that's 50 amps, right? Okay, that was wrong, and you guys pointed that out, and I did some deeper research and discovered that that is a mathematical table in here. So you divide the 5,000 by 1,000. That gives you your actual amp hours. That gives you 5 amp hours for this battery. Okay, at 50C, you multiply 5 times 50, and it gives you the total amps for the battery. That's what that is. Total amps. In other words, it's not the capacity, it's how much amperage is inside this battery. Okay, that's my understanding on that. But there's one other thing that counts, and let's use this one just to get started. Let's use this one. Okay, so this is a 4S battery pack. Okay, it's a little off name brand one, but this one's been holding up pretty well. The other one I bought at the same time is gone because it failed. This one's still holding up, but you can see in the side of it here, 1, 2, 3, 4 cells, 4S. Okay, 14.8 volts, right? Yep, 14.8 volts. All right, so this is a 4S battery pack. 4S, 4 cells, 4S, 4 cells. How come it says 4S when cells starts with C? Shouldn't this be 4C? No, because the S does not denote how many cells are in it. It does, but only in the first portion, 4. So there's 4. What it actually stands for, and I've got something to show you this too. So this, let's consider this. So it's got a pigtail and a big one, right? Okay, so it's got the balanced cable and the regular cable. Let's go with negative, positive. Okay, 1 cell. We're going to consider this 1 cell for this demonstration, okay? But we have 2 of them. Cool. So now we have 2 cells. So 3.7 volts, 3.7 volts, 1 LiPo cell each. That's what we're going to say these are. Okay, for the sake of the argument, there's 2 ways to connect these. If you stack them this direction, okay, and you hold them this way, now you have positive to positive, negative to negative. You connect to that, and you still have 3.7 volts. Okay, 3.7. So why is that? Because it's positive to positive, negative to negative. It doesn't multiply the voltage. You get twice the capacity, but you don't get twice the voltage because it's wired in parallel. That's what this is. Positive to positive, negative to negative, parallel. Okay, but if you take them this way, negative, positive to positives, hook up on the outside, now it runs them in what's called series. When you run them in series, and it actually multiplies the cells at that rate, so now you're running twice the voltage because it's in series, not parallel. So what's 4S mean? It means it is 4 cells in series, which gives you the total voltage. 4 cells in series, 14.8 volts, that you wouldn't get if they were wired in parallel. So 4S, 4 cells wired in series. All right, so let's talk about safety for a minute. Now, these hold a lot of power, and that's a real thing. These can be dangerous. Don't get me wrong here. These can be dangerous. They've burned houses down. They've caught things on fire. If you're going to go run out in nature, be sure to take a fire extinguisher with you. Just have it in your truck, because if you have a battery failure, if you hit really hard or you slam into a rock and the battery catches fire, it basically, if you got a fully charged battery, it's like a plasma cutter, shoots a flame like that that's blue. I've seen those go off and they're never pretty, and you can't put them out with water. Everything it needs to burn is inside the battery, so it kind of has to burn itself. But if you have a fire extinguisher, you can keep it from spreading, let the thing do what it's got to do, get it out, and be safe about it, because that is a real thing. I've never had a battery burst in the car. That's not something I've had happen. I've had them overheat, even with the NiCads. The only battery that I've ever had catch fire was a NiCad. It wasn't even a Lipo. It wasn't a nickel metal hydride, although those do get hot when they're charging. We actually had a nickel cadmium battery melt the surface off the top till it connected the battery next to it, and pff, it was on fire. It happened just like that. It was actually in the studio and it was on the charger. It didn't happen in the car. But the potential is still there. If you punch a hole through a battery, the potential for that to light off and catch fire and be something you can't stop is very real. And we have a charging bay here. We don't, personally, we have the space here, and we have the access to the facilities to where we don't charge in the studio. We don't do that. We charge out in Studio 3 that's vented. We have a charge box, and here's an image of that. We have a charge box that's got brick in the bottom to isolate batteries from one another. We have, it's all steel. We have a charging bay at the top with a closable lid. And when we store these things, we use ammo boxes, not the plastic ones. We use the metal ammo boxes. When we're transporting batteries from one place to another, we put them in the ammo boxes. If it catches fire, you can grab the handle and pitch it off on the road. You don't want to burn your car down, right? But the odds of that happening are very low. But at the same time, if you do use an ammo box, those seal. Okay, they're supposed to keep your ammunition dry. So when you snap the lid shut on it, it makes it airtight. Okay, that's a problem because there's nowhere for the vapors and the gas expansion to get out. If you're going to use an ammo box, go to the lid, drill a small 1/4-inch hole in the top, and then cover it with black tape. If it builds any pressure, it'll spit the tape off and vent, as opposed to bursting the can itself. Like I say, I'm not trying to scare you, but this is real. I mean, this is something you have to pay attention to. Make sure you never plug a battery in, put it on charge, and walk away from it, because you never know when one's going to puff up. You never know when you're going to have a problem. And you'll usually hear them go before it's a problem. You'll hear them start to vent. That's your instant to get it away from anything flammable. Never charge in the house. Never charge anything around anything that's very flammable. Like I say, people have lost houses over these. Now, there was this one young man. I was at one of the hobby stores. I went to another state, went to another hobby store, and they know me in there. We had a good time. This guy comes in and he goes, "I think I have a problem." And he shows him these batteries, and these aren't very old, but they're puffed up to the point to where the skin on them is just about to rupture. And basically, all you had to do is rupture the skin and it would have been on. Well, what had happened was he charged it all the way up, got it fully charged, stuck it in his car. Forgot it was there. Now he's got a fully charged Lipo battery in the trunk of his car with his RC. Now, in normal battery situations, and keep in mind, that time of year, trunks can get really hot, right? Because the sun hits them and it overheats. Okay. But when you think about it, batteries like that need to be really closely monitored. If you're going to go out and run, charge your battery and go run, or take your battery and charge on site. Now, that seems to be a bit impractical. Most of us want to throw a couple of batteries together and go. And that really does work nicely, but here's what always happens with me. So I'll take an RC. Let's say we're going to pick one and just go play. I'll charge up 3 sets of batteries. Cool. We're going to go have a good time. This is going to last a while. Break it on the first set. Now I have 2 sets of batteries that are fully charged that I can't use. Now, if you've ever put one on a charger for discharge, that can take days to bring a large battery down to a storage level. And this is a perfect time to get into storage. Lipo batteries are finicky. They are. And as they sit, they slowly lose charge. And that's natural because the ions move from the positive to the negative side. And there's a whole chemistry inside of these. It's not just some lead acid core thing. This isn't the whole thing. It's a wet deal in there. But here's the thing. Where's it at? Let's use this one, for example. Okay, so with these things, think of it as A and B. It's not this way, it's actually more vertical, but think of it as A and B. So as you charge the battery, the ions go to one side, and it builds until it's charged. As you discharge the battery, the ions go back the other way, and it releases the energy that was put into it, moving in one direction than the other. But these will only charge down to a certain voltage. So if you drop below, I believe it's 1.2 volts per cell. I think that's what it is. But if you get below that threshold, your charger is going to go, nope, it's bad. And it won't charge it because it can damage the cell itself. Think of it as the battery in your car. Okay, so car batteries are pretty basic technology. It's got an acid jacket in there, and it's got lead separators in there, and the ions travel back and forth, and that's all good. So let's say you leave it in your car, you don't drive your car for a couple of months, and there's the little key fob to start it. That's always listening, and it runs the battery down. If you've ever gone out to your car after a month and it won't start, this is why. The problem is, if it sits that way very long, the lead plates in there swell. Okay? Once this one touches that one, that cell's done. It will not work like it's supposed to anymore, and you have to buy a new battery. Leaving a car battery for your big car uncharged for any length of time allows that to take place, and those things go bad. Okay, transfer that to this. Okay, this battery, if it gets below, let's say you put it in a storage charge that's really low, say 20%. Okay, so this is down at 20%, you throw it in the cupboard or wherever, outside, someplace that's protected from fire, just in case. This will slowly lose charge. 1 month, probably okay. 2 months, probably okay. 3 months, now you're getting right down to where it won't charge it anymore. So the battery chargers that I have it set to charge to 35 to 40% charge on one of these, so they'll sit a little bit longer. And that's one of them, it's 35 right out of the gate. So that's what it does. So it brings us up to 35% charge, but it doesn't jack it all the way up, right? So it leaves it mostly discharged. But there's a residual charge in there to keep the cells alive while it's in storage. That's what that's for. I've got brand new batteries out of the store that were sealed, that came in from wherever they come in from, plugged them in to check where they were at, and they were at 50% charge for storage. Once you use them, try to keep them right around 30-35%, and they should sit on the shelf okay without much problems. Okay, now let's talk about the difference between soft shell and hard shell. All right, so here's the soft shell version of this, and all you see is it's got the shrink wrap around a label around the cells, and that's it. You got a little bit of tape on the ends just to keep everything neat looking, but it's right to the cells, and that's a bad thing in most situations because these become fragile. You smash it into something, that can be a problem. If you tear into the battery itself, that can be a problem. So there's no real protection here, but here's the difference on that. These have the ability, and as these are used, so zip, 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 these lose charge, but they gain heat. These heat up when that happens, and you need to be able to dissipate that heat so it doesn't get hot enough to melt the casing on this stuff. That's not a huge issue, right? Most situations that's fine, but not all. Now, nothing's perfect, okay? Just understand, nothing is ever perfect, but the hard shell case is a slightly different situation because if you look inside here, it basically has that inside this. Okay, that's cool, right? It's real protective, but the hard case also takes space. So with this one, I could get this one. Same kind of battery, same basic power system, same. If I put this in my car, then put this in my car, you wouldn't know the difference. The car would, however, because look at the difference in size. Okay, hard shell batteries are bigger. And if you need to stack two, then you have to wonder, do I have the room to fit these in there? Because these are so much bigger that it takes all that extra space when I could stack 2 of these in the space of 1.5 of these. So these are more space economical. Is it worth the danger though? I don't know, it depends on where you're running, but generally I prefer those over these. Now there's some people that are dyed-in-the-wool hard shell case fans, and that's not wrong. If that makes you feel better using them, great. But here is my take on the downside to these. This is a hard shell plastic case, okay? And it's fairly thick, right? So it's got a nice durable case. Excellent. But is it? I mean, let's think about this for a second. These, what happens when you use these? They generate heat because of the transfer of the ions from one side to the other. It generates heat within the battery, and with that hard plastic case on it, it's a little harder to get the heat off the battery, and it builds on the inside. That's where this comes in handy. Now, take a look at this one. This one's from HRB, okay, and this is one of their new ones. This one's been out about a year, and I got these right away. Love these batteries, but the reason I love these batteries isn't just because they power good. They do. These do great, and these are big ones, and you can run a long time in an RC with these. But look at how squared up that is. Looks like a hard shell case, doesn't it? But it's not. That's not actually a plastic case. It's not. This has aluminum in it for the casing. The end, it's got a little of that in there. So basically, they have plates in there that are aluminum. And those aluminum plates help dissipate the heat, but you still get the strength like it's a plastic shell. That was the big selling point for this one for me. And I wanted to get these out and try them. I've had no problems with these. They work really well. Not sponsored, right? That's how impressed I am with these. And like I say, this is 9,500 milliamps, and it fits in the X-Max, but it only fits in the X-Max with the battery case modification. So we took out the actual mounts for the battery, the restraints, and put Velcro straps in there. So now I can put any size battery I want in there. And that was a pain in the neck. But at the same time, if I was going to run these, I had to do this. These fit right in the DBXLE with no problems. And they fit in a lot of the different ones too. But the X-Max has that hard restraint system, and these are just a little too big for that. But the aluminum does help shed the heat. Is that a super thing? Not really. But if you're running in high temperature areas and you're doing stuff like that, then yeah, that can be a real issue. But overall, I would say that is maybe 10% of your issue when it comes to batteries. All right, so let's take a minute and talk about charging systems and how that works. So we have multiple chargers back here, and we'll get you a close-up of this, but we have one from Traxxas, we have one from Spectrum, and we have one that's an aftermarket that I really like. You can get 2 batteries at a time, 4 batteries at a time, 1 battery at a time. So I have the blue one back there, that's Traxxas, that's 1 battery at a time. The one that we have there from Spectrum, also 1 at a time, but it charges smart batteries. So you just plug it in and it charges it. That's just kind of how that works. We don't have smart batteries, so we still have to program it and tell it what's in there, but it does automatically detect what kind of battery is in it. So it'll tell you it's 2S by the voltage that you plug into it. They also have the pigtails, and what that is, now the Traxxas one doesn't do this. It's proprietary to Traxxas batteries only and specific Traxxas batteries, but I got it when I bought a car. I just don't use it because I convert everything over. But this is the balance pigtail. Okay, so this is the small one, and this one plugs in secondarily. This is the primary output cable. Okay, so on these chargers, you plug both of these in. You plug this one in, and you plug this one in. What's the difference in these? Okay, so this is the primary output. This is, on this battery, this is 3S. So that gives 11.1 volts right here at this one. However, this one has a ground lead, and it has 1 lead to each battery. Okay, what that does is it tells the charger what each cell is doing individually. Now, there are 2 ways that you can charge. You can rapid charge or you can balance charge, and that's basically what you want to do is each time balance charge. If you're at the track, you have pretty stable batteries and you've got a race coming up, you can put it on charge and get it because your batteries are in pretty good condition anyway. But don't just charge all the time. You need to balance charge. And the reason that works is simple. If you have 3 cells in here, okay, and you throw current to them to charge them up, if you have one that's having issues or one that had discharged lower than the others, the balance charge will wait until this one catches the other ones before it calls it good. So they'll all be charged to the 4.2 volts per cell is fully charged. Okay, so when it gets to 4.2 volts on each cell, it's balanced. The problem is if you don't balance charge, it'll get up to a certain overall rating and stop. Okay, well you could be 4.2, 4.2, 3.5. So what's the problem with that? What's the problem with 3.5 volts in just one of the cells? This is the problem. Okay, this doesn't care. This small one doesn't plug into the car. It has no idea what each cell's doing. It just knows that there's a certain amount of current in that pigtail. Okay, so you put this in the car and you start playing with it. Cool, the battery cells start to discharge evenly. By the time, because it's got 2 overcharged cells compared to the third one, by the time this is considered dead, you will not save that middle cell because it'll discharge it below charge rate. So what that means is by the time the 4.2 volt one gets to recharge time, in other words, it shuts the car off, the smaller 3.5 charge is already below the ability to recharge. So each time you charge one of these, the recommendation is balance charge them. Make sure that you keep all your cells even, because if you don't, you're just going to throw it away after you've done it enough times to destroy one of the cells. And once one of the cells is gone, they're pretty much junk. All right, to just show you how dangerous these can be if they're not properly maintained, we have a completely dead battery, and we consider it dead. Now there's some current in it. It's not completely bad. It's not usable. It's been sitting for a long time, and I consider it pretty much a dead battery. And we're going to go right outside, and we're going to light that thing off. We're going to drive a screw through it so we can short it out to show you what current is still in a dead one. The thing is, this is pretty much a dead battery. Imagine what this would be like with a fully charged one. Pretty gnarly, huh? All right, so that was a dead battery, and it was one that sat around for a good long time, and you would consider it dead, but the heat that came off it was impressive. It melted right through all of the tape. It melted through the plastic. It was a gnarly experiment for something that was considered dead. That's part of the reason you never throw them in the trash when you're done with them. Most hobby stores that I know of will help you recycle them. If you've got a waste management place around you, you might be able to use those to recycle. There are many ways to consider them completely dead. That we don't advocate towards. If you know a way to completely discharge your batteries, please leave it in the comments to help the others. But we turn ours in at the hobby store, and they get rid of them for us. And that works out pretty good because they use the proper protocols, shipping procedures to take and get rid of those so that they will be dealt with properly. If you just pitch one in the trash and a trash compacting truck squeezes it and it catches fire, I've seen a couple of garbage trucks on fire, and it's never cool. And it's most of the time it's related to batteries. That's why they say don't throw them in the garbage. That being said, most of the issues that I've seen, even online, usually comes from when you're charging them. And it doesn't matter. The thing about it is, if you look at the big chargers, like the ones on the shelf or on the bench back there, they look like they have a lot of horsepower, and they do. There's a lot of current there, but they also have automatic shutoffs. But again, we talked about this earlier. If you have something that's automatic, there's always the chance that you'll have a programming glitch and things could fail, and that could be catastrophic, especially if it fails after charging. So let's say it takes a battery and it charges it all the way up and it fails to turn off. Now this is a smaller one, but same difference. If it fails to turn off and it continues to give you more and more current, that battery is going to come unglued at full charge, and those are nasty. I've seen video of fully charged ones going off, and you don't want to be near them when they do that. So it's something you always want to be very careful with. And I showed you this one. We have several of these actually, and these are USB chargers. They still charge the batteries. They charge at a fairly low current, and it takes a while to do it, and they connect down on these pigtails. And these connect to the balancing leads. They don't connect to the overall lead, the main one that goes to the drive system. These charge through the pigtail leads, so it's a really low current. But even at a really low current, if you continually fill a glass with water, so let's say you have, set these down. Let's say you have a glass in the sink and the water's just barely pouring out of the faucet. And you let that sit there, it will fill the glass. But if you don't turn the faucet off, it will overfill the glass and you'll have a mess. Same thing basically applies to the batteries. You have to make sure that you handle those in the proper way, especially during charging, which is where it becomes really important. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit. It's exceptionally important that you don't walk away and leave them unattended. If there's a problem, you don't want to be very far from it. There's two reasons for that. One, it creates an amazing amount of heat. It's something you really wouldn't expect. They put out, you think it's a toy, right? But it's not. And they put out, it doesn't matter, nickel metal hydride, it could be lithium ion, it could be lithium polymer. All of that is the same. And here's an example. So we went up to the cabin and we were goofing off, and I had the Talion out and I made a jump. And the jump came off a little funny, and I reached up to keep the car from landing on Rob's truck, and I was successful. So I batted it aside. I almost caught it, but didn't quite make it. At the same time, it knocked the radio out of my hand, and the radio hit the ground. And as you watch this, take a look at what happens to the radio batteries, which are just 4 alkaline batteries. And these things seem so innocuous. Oh, just AA batteries, right? Watch what happens. Yeah, I'm good. I've been there before.
What happened? Oh no!
Dude, you missed it. No, I'm not kidding. You missed it. It came right at your truck, and I caught it. Almost caught it.
Oh, damn.
Wham! Missed your truck. Dropped my radio.
I got the jets that you got hit. But...
Does he
No,
have it
I
on
just
video?
slapped it. Yeah, I got to go swap the radio batteries. These finally went to you. Ooh, and they're hot. Yeah, that one.
one's
Yeah,
melted.
it gets,
That
battery
one's-
gets pretty hot.
That's not good.
That's not normal.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, isn't it weird? How that gimbal works.
Put your finger
Check.
on the camera.
Check. Oh, holy.
Around.
Eric,
What's that?
that's just super hot.
Is it?
Oh yeah.
We'll split the...
Yeah, you can't touch it right now.
Touch it.
Yeah, there you
You got batteries?
Yeah, I got batteries. So even the AA batteries can be a problem because there's still 1, 2, 1, 5 on the voltage that's in each cell. And it doesn't seem like much. We handle those all the time and don't think anything of it. But there's enough current in there. If that had melted through and melted through the one next to it, the chance of it being able to actually catch that controller on fire was real. So you can't just assume that just because it's a little battery that you deal with all the time that they are safe. They're still batteries and they hold a lot of energy, so always treat them with care, because that's how you survive whatever you're doing, is be careful with what you're doing. You need to be real careful with the batteries in the RC itself, but don't forget to be careful with the batteries in the receiver or transmitter, depending on what you're using. If it's a gas-powered RC, you'll have 4 in the car, you'll have 4 in the radio, and that's the only time that I've had that happen, like out running with my friends and stuff, I've had those batteries overheat before, usually because I did something stupid with it and made contact and they overheat. But even the small batteries can be dangerous. Before we get out of here, let's talk about one more thing. And this is a really big subject when it comes to this because of the safety hazards you have to keep an eye on. But beyond that, let's talk really quickly about what you can do when you're charging these things to be very safe about it. One, never have them in an area where they're exposed to flammable materials. If you can put them on something metal or something glass so the heat can't go down through it, that's one way to mitigate it. But the other part of it, and I did say there was 2 reasons for this, when that glass of water gets full and it winds up in the sink, you've overdone it. Same thing applies to the batteries. And if you overdo it with one of those and you're in an enclosed space, the fire potential is real. But just as real is the fumes that come off of it. Notice we did that little burn experiment outside. Because if we were inside the house, one, we probably wouldn't have got the smell out of the shop, you know, that area in there. 2, who knows how toxic those are? We didn't look into the toxicity of it, but you wouldn't want to breathe that stuff in either. So the most important thing is to have it somewhere where you could get it outside in a hurry if you do have a problem. My understanding, my understanding of the dangers on this is most of the failures happen during charging. Some do happen because of impact and whatnot, and that's why you always want to keep a fire extinguisher handy. But for the most part, it happens during charging. Even that one that my friend had go up for his drill, that happened during charging. It didn't happen during use. So that's also something to keep in mind. So there you go, RC Batteries 101, and this is the absolute basics on this. You know, you have to be careful, right? Because with high energy becomes, the potential for volatility is real. Like I said, I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to make you aware of the potential dangers. Properly mitigated, they can be safe to use for the most part, but you do have to mind those safety warnings. In that can, when you transport them, if you've got an ammo box, remember, those seal to keep the actual ammunition that box is designed for, like dry. So it's sealed watertight so that it keeps the ammunition dry. The problem with carrying those batteries inside of it is it can create a pressure cooker environment. See, you watched the video of the battery expanding, right? It expands so rapidly, where does the gas go? It will build up inside that can and create a problem. That's why you drill the corner and tape over it. If it's taped over and sealed, it's still watertight, which will take care of your batteries. But if it builds pressure, it'll blow the tape off and it won't build a catastrophic environment inside that can. The problem is when one battery goes off, let's say you have 3 or 4 in there. When that one battery goes off, it's going to set the one next to it off because one, it gets hot enough to burn right through the other one, right? But the more heat that's contained within there, it will create a pressure wave inside of that can if it's sealed, and it'll burn through everything quickly. It can create a catastrophic environment inside the can. But if you can get that to vent in the corner, it will reduce that pressure wave a little bit, and it should be able to shoot more like a sparkler out of the vent hole than to rupture the entire can. Again, that sounds pretty gnarly, and we haven't had that happen, but the relief area, like a relief valve in that box, could prevent something even more catastrophic from happening. So there you go. If you have any comments that you'd like to add to this, please feel free to get down in the comments and share it with the community so we get the best information we can when it comes to these batteries, because the cars are one thing, the power system is something altogether different. If you haven't already, don't forget to bash that like button and help our content spread. You know, the 101 series is geared towards new people to bring to light the things that they should know to operate safely within the hobby, and that's really what the playlist for 101 is all about, bringing them on board and letting them know all about the hobby they're in. If you have any ideas for other 101 videos, please leave that in the comments as well. We do read the comments when we have the chance. There's a lot of times when we are sent out of town because of our jobs and whatnot. Like I say, running the channel, this is part of our hobby. This is not our full-time job. Also, don't forget the memberships are still open. And I will mention this one more time for the people that haven't seen the last couple videos. The memberships are not a money grab, okay? A lot of people, I've heard a lot of people comment that, yeah, once you go to memberships, it's a money grab. It's not. The RC hobby today is expensive. Everything's expensive. The DBXLE now is selling for $1,500, and that's a big bite to chew. So the memberships actually just help us continue with what we're doing. We've spent way more on this hobby than we've gotten back from the channel, and I don't know if we'll ever get right side up because we try to do things correctly here, and everything costs money. You're looking at a new set. The set is the same, but the lighting is completely different, and we invested in that so you could see what's on the shelves, what's on the bench, and all of that. And every time we make a move like that to make the videos better for the viewer, it does cost money. And I really want to put a special thank you out there to the members. Those of you that have already joined the channel, we appreciate your sacrifice of giving us a little bit each month to try and help us continue doing this. I got to tell you, we couldn't do this without you. For AJ Jam Studios, I'm AJ saying, keep bashing.